Hi, I'm Rowena. And for weeks, my sister kept whispering, just wait, something big is coming for your birthday. And I believed her. I thought maybe, just maybe, I was finally going to be celebrated. But when I walked into the party, the cake had her name on it. The ring on her finger used to be promised to me. And the guest list? Didn't even include mine. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing they never forgot me. They just rewrote the story without me in it. What would you do if your family planned their future on your silence? Would you finally speak? Or would you keep waiting for something big that was never meant for you? My 35th birthday was 5 weeks away when Callista sent the first text. Just wait, something big is coming. It lit up my screen as I stirred honey into my tea, a flicker of hope rising in my chest like steam from the cup. Her words clung to me, unexpected and soft, a rare sweetness from someone who, most days, barely acknowledged I had a birthday at all. In the past, birthdays for me were quiet affairs. More often than not, accidental afterthoughts. A card left unsigned. A cake bought last minute with happy birthday scrawled in generic white icing. One year, everyone forgot entirely until Travis, back then just a friend, showed up with a pack of candles and a bottle of wine. That was the last time I felt like someone truly saw me on that day. But this year, Callista was promising something. Something big. She used to hate surprises, unless she was the one orchestrating them, which made her sudden enthusiasm feel both thrilling and, somehow, suspicious. Still, part of me, maybe the part that never gave up, clung to it. Maybe she was trying. Maybe we were turning a corner. The next day, I found myself scrolling through Pinterest boards titled Simple but Stunning Birthday Ideas and How to Plan a Surprise Party Without Ruining It. Ridiculous, I know. I hadn't even gotten a call last year until 9 p.m. But something about the way Callista said it, the way she repeated it over coffee with Mom, it's going to be special for Rowena this year, made me believe just a little. I started imagining things. A family brunch with real place settings. Balloons, maybe, but not the dollar store kind. Maybe even Travis would come, awkwardly but kindly, like he used to when we were still something undefined. I imagined the music, the warmth, the moment I'd be genuinely surprised for once in my life, and feel important. It didn't last. About a week later, Callista asked me to help her unload groceries. We just pulled into the driveway after a Costco run when I noticed the box. Glossy red, gold ribbon, unmistakable. I had wrapped that exact box the year before, down to the fold in the lower corner. Back then, it had been my gift to Vera, an aromatherapy set she never opened. Now, it was nestled beside Callista's handbag like a fresh idea. She saw me looking. "Oh, that?" she said casually. "I'm reusing the box. Sustainability, you know?" I nodded slowly. Sure, sustainability. As we unpacked paper towels and a questionable amount of organic quinoa, I kept glancing back at that box. Maybe she really was just reusing it. Maybe it meant nothing. But something about the way she avoided my eyes when she said it left a mark. Small, but impossible to ignore. The signs started trickling in after that. Vera, who usually dropped hints about planning something low-key or not making a fuss, suddenly went quiet whenever I mentioned my birthday. She started saying things like, "Let's see how the week unfolds," or, "I wouldn't worry about plans just yet." Travis came to Sunday dinner and barely spoke to me. He sat beside Callista, his hand resting lightly on her back in a way that made my stomach knot. When I asked him if he was free the weekend of my birthday, he glanced at Callista before saying, "It's going to be a packed month." I started telling myself stories to soothe the sting. Maybe they were all being secretive because they were planning something big. A surprise, yes. That would explain it. That would make this unease disappear. But unease is persistent. It lives in glances, in the way conversations pause when you enter the room. It speaks through offhanded jokes that don't quite land. It builds slowly, then all at once. That night, I sat at my desk with a half glass of wine and opened my old journal. The pages smelled faintly of lavender and thyme. I hadn't written in months, maybe years, but tonight, the words came easily. I don't want to get my hopes up, but I am. I really, really am. I scribbled down every dream. A brunch, a gathering, even just a heartfelt card. I wrote it all out like a wish list, like a prayer I couldn't say out loud. Then I closed the journal, sealing it with my breath. My phone lit up again. Callista. A grinning emoji, followed by, "We're planning something unforgettable." Laundry wasn't something I usually volunteered for, but that afternoon I needed an excuse to stay busy. The house had been buzzing with a weird kind of tension. Quiet voices behind doors that didn't used to close all the way. Folding towels was easier than wondering if the silence had anything to do with me. I reached into the pocket of Dad's winter coat to make sure no tissues had been left behind. Instead, I pulled out a thick, gold-edged envelope, the kind that practically screamed important. I almost tossed it onto the pile without looking. Almost. But curiosity tugged. The card was embossed with a floral design and elegant serif font. You are cordially invited to the engagement celebration of Callista Marie Walsh and Travis Henry Gray. My eyes caught on the date, my birthday. The room didn't spin, but something inside me tipped. Not a collapse, but a shift. I stared at the invite longer than I meant to, reading it again and again, hoping the date might magically change or that there was a second name I hadn't noticed. There wasn't. I slipped the card back where I found it, smoothing the edges like I hadn't touched it. For a moment, I stood in the dim light of the laundry room, listening to the hum of the dryer and the sharp thump of a zipper against metal. That sound grounded me. Maybe they just hadn't told me yet. Maybe this was all part of the surprise. Maybe I'd walk into a party and be greeted with confetti and tears and warm embraces. I clung to the maybes like lifelines, but the next few days peeled those maybes away. Callista was suddenly unavailable for everything. Even when we were in the same room, her eyes darted to her phone more than my face. She laughed at messages I didn't see and left mid-conversation to take calls she never explained. Travis came by more often too, but only to pick her up or drop her off. He barely looked in my direction. When he did, it was the glance of a man checking the weather, brief and impersonal. Vera, meanwhile, was all smiles that never reached her eyes. She offered vague affirmations whenever I asked about plans for the weekend of my birthday. "Oh, you'll see," she said once, squeezing my shoulder. "Big things are coming." That exact phrase again. I tried to laugh it off. One evening, while they buzzed around the kitchen, making what smelled like rehearsal dinner test dishes, I joked, "Should I be worried, or am I being secretly adopted out of this family?" No one laughed. Callista glanced at Travis, who looked at his phone. Vera smiled tightly and said, "Don't be silly, sweetheart." That night, we had what looked like a normal family dinner, on the surface. The table was full, the wine was poured, and the food was probably good, though I barely tasted it. Everyone talked, but not to me. Conversation zigzagged around my chair, like a river splitting around a stone. At one point, Callista stood and lifted her glass. "Here's to surprises," she said, eyes lingering on Travis and Vera, in that way people do when everyone knows the punchline, but one person. I lifted my glass too, smiling so hard my jaw ached. No one noticed how tightly I gripped the stem of my glass under the table. When the dishes were cleared and the kitchen began to fill with post-dinner chatter, Vera turned to me. "Could you help clean up, honey?" Her tone was syrupy sweet. "Let the others keep planning." I looked around. The others. Planning. I nodded, walked to the sink, and started rinsing plates. From the corner of my eye, I saw them head back to the living room. Callista with her binder, Travis with his arm around her shoulder, Vera reaching for her reading glasses. I wasn't invited to the conversation. I was assigned to the cleanup. Later that night, I sat in bed with the invitation clutched in both hands. It was still slightly crumpled from where I'd found it. I didn't know if I was holding it to remind myself it was real, or to find some corner of it that proved I had misread everything. But there was no mistake, no hidden message, just a date that didn't belong to them, but somehow no longer belonged to me either. The hallway was unusually quiet that morning, like the house was holding its breath. As I passed the den, I noticed Callista's photo wall had doubled in size overnight. Dozens of frames had been added, some new, some pulled from old albums, all pristine in symmetry. Smiling faces at lake houses, backyard BBQs, graduation ceremonies. Moments so carefully chosen, they felt curated by someone auditioning for the role of perfect life. I stood there longer than I meant to, scanning each one. My eyes hunted for even a sliver of myself. A birthday, a childhood shot, anything. But there was nothing. I reached out, touched the edge of a frame with Vera holding a toddler Callista at the beach, then withdrew my hand like I'd touched something hot. No one said anything about it. No one had to. Later that afternoon, Vera asked if I could help organize Callista's room while she prepped for another vendor visit. I said yes without thinking. Habit, I guess. Inside, I folded blankets and moved a stack of unused gift bags from the desk when a small square card slipped from one and landed on the floor. I picked it up. The front had glitter pressed into floral etchings. Inside, the words, "Happy Birthday, Rowena," were printed in a font too perfect to be personal. The rest of the card? Blank, no message, no signature, not even a date. I stared at it, fingers pressing the crease. I should have laughed. Or cried. Or maybe ripped it in two. But I did none of those things. I gently placed it back into the envelope and slid it where it had fallen, as if it had never happened. That evening, as we sat around the dining table, Callista launched into another story about centerpieces. And then I thought, what if we go rustic gold instead of champagne tones? It's more timeless. I forced a nod. She looked at me suddenly, like remembering I was there. I've already finished the slideshow. It's going to be a real story. Our story. Childhood, college, Paris, the proposal. Our whole journey. You'll love it. Do you need any help with it? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Her smile thinned. Oh, it's already done. But thank you. Already done. I didn't even know which pictures were being used, but I could guess which weren't. Later that night, after everyone had turned in, I sat on the living room floor with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. I connected my old camcorder to the television and sifted through hours of footage. Christmas mornings, birthdays, beach trips. There I was, behind the camera. Every time. In one clip, Callista opened a gift I'd wrapped. Vera thanked her. Travis leaned over to compliment the choice. No one remembered I was the one holding the lens. You could hear my voice off screen, laughing at a joke no one responded to. It echoed against the walls, hollow. Did I ever belong? I whispered. Tears welled up, but I swallowed them. I was done crying in the dark for people who wouldn't notice the light missing. Before bed, I opened the shared family cloud account on my phone. I scrolled until I found my baby photo, the one with me on Dad's lap, chocolate cake smeared across my cheeks. I clicked the 3 dots and selected Delete from Shared Album. The system asked if I was sure. I didn't hesitate. It wasn't rebellion. It was an experiment. That night, I set my phone on the nightstand, rolled over, and turned out the light. Minutes later, the screen lit up again. A message from a number I hadn't saved in years. You still awake? I need to tell you something. It was from Aunt Isolde. I hadn't even turned off the lamp when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a number I hadn't seen in years. Aunt Isolde. My thumb hovered over the screen for a moment before I tapped it open. Are you awake? I need to tell you something. She hadn't texted me directly since my college graduation. We used to be close, in the way that quiet relatives form bonds through shared silences. She never said much, but when she did, it mattered. I replied, Yes, you can call. A minute passed, then the phone rang. Hi, sweetheart. Her voice came through low and careful, like she was trying not to wake someone. This is going to sound strange, and I'm sorry if I'm overstepping, but I think you should be careful. I sat up, my back straightening against the pillows. Careful about what? I asked. I don't know the whole picture, she continued, but I've heard things in passing. Vera's been coordinating something with Callista, something big, and your name hasn't come up once. There was a pause. A long one. She added, I think they're leaving you out on purpose. I didn't respond right away. My thoughts fumbled for something solid to hold on to. My mouth opened, then closed again. I'm not trying to stir the pot, she said quickly, but you deserve to know, even if they think they're doing it for your own good. I wanted to ask her what that meant, for my own good, but the words stuck. I just thought you should hear it from someone who actually sees you. We said goodbye quietly. I stared at the wall for a while, unsure what to do with what she had just given me. It wasn't information, exactly. It was validation, and somehow that hurt worse. I threw on a sweatshirt and stepped outside. The air was crisp, sharp against my face. I started walking aimlessly through the neighborhood, past trimmed hedges and porches with seasonal wreaths. My hands were buried in my sleeves, but my mind felt exposed. How many times had I been told I was too sensitive? That I took things the wrong way? That I misunderstood? Maybe that was the point. If people can convince you you're wrong enough times, they don't have to tell you anything anymore. They assume you'll fill in the blanks with grace. Stay quiet. Stay small. As I rounded the corner toward our block, the glow of our front porch light came into view. The curtains were drawn, and I could see silhouettes moving inside. Callista, Mom, probably Travis, planning something that wasn't meant for me. The next morning, over lukewarm coffee, I asked casually, Is everything okay with Aunt Isolde? Vera looked up from her crossword. Why do you ask? She messaged me last night. That got her attention. Really? She said, folding the newspaper slowly. Well, you know how she is. Always been a bit dramatic. I watched her face carefully. The smile she gave me was polite, but it didn't touch her eyes. Her hand smoothed the corner of the paper unnecessarily. I let the conversation die there. That night, after I finished cleaning the kitchen, I pulled out my laptop and started searching through old family email threads. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe just proof that I wasn't crazy. That this feeling, this fog of exclusion, wasn't paranoia. I opened the family events folder, dozens of emails. I started scanning dates, subject lines. One thread stood out. Callista's big day, final confirmations. I clicked it. The CC list ran down the side of the screen. Vera, Travis, even a few distant cousins I barely remembered. But my name wasn't there. I scrolled. They discussed catering, chairs, speeches. The speech part stung. I sat back in my chair, breathing slow and quiet. Then I highlighted the line, Rowena not needed for this one, copied it into a document, and stared at it. Not needed, not forgotten, excluded. And worse, they thought I wouldn't notice. Callista knocked on my door just before 6. You should dress nice tonight, she said, not bothering to step in. Dinner's kind of special. I stared at the door long after it clicked shut. No explanation, no invitation, just instructions. But I followed them anyway. By the time I came downstairs, the house had been transformed. String lights wound across the ceiling beams, floral arrangements lined the entryway, and the scent of catered appetizers hovered in the air like a veil. Voices drifted from the backyard, dozens of them. Laughter, toasts. My stomach tightened. I stepped onto the patio and froze. A table near the center held a towering cake, white and gold, with cursive piping that read, Congratulations, Callista and Travis. There was no mention of my name, no birthday banner, no candles. Someone clapped behind me, then others joined. The sound felt like a slap. Callista appeared at the top of the stairs, wearing a fitted white cocktail dress. Travis stood beside her, beaming. Flashbulbs popped. Guests cheered. I stayed where I was. Not a single person noticed I hadn't smiled. Not one asked why I was standing by myself near the buffet, a glass of untouched champagne in my hand. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was clarity. Vera clinked her glass and raised it high. To Callista and her bright, beautiful future, she declared, her voice full of pride. Someone near me leaned over to another guest and whispered, "Isn't it her sister's birthday too?" The second person shrugged. Must have been another day. Travis glanced in my direction briefly, then looked away. I found Callista just after dessert, when the crowd had started to thin for dancing. She was touching up her lipstick in the hallway mirror, as if nothing about this night had broken protocol. "You used my birthday for this," I said, the words catching in my throat. She didn't turn around. "Don't be dramatic. It's just a date." "It's my date," I said quietly. "You could have chosen any other weekend." Finally, she faced me. "We tried, but the venue was booked out. Vendors, too." "Look, you being here is enough, Rowena. Really, you being here is enough." I backed away before I could say anything I'd regret, though part of me was beginning to regret staying silent for so long. Outside, the night air hit me like cold water. I walked toward the edge of the yard, where the noise from the speakers faded into stillness. I pulled out my phone, hoping for something, anything, to ground me. There was a new notification from the family photo group. Someone had uploaded a picture of the group gathered around the cake. I was in the frame, barely. Off to the side, only half of my body visible. Cropped by coincidence or intention, I'd never know. I didn't save the photo. I deleted it before it finished loading. My fingers trembled as I shoved the phone into my coat pocket. I looked back at the glowing house, the silhouettes dancing, the outline of my family among strangers. Not again. This time, I'm not swallowing it. The morning after the engagement party, I woke to the sound of cardboard brushing across wood. I pushed myself upright, still in the clothes I'd collapsed in the night before, and looked toward the half-open door. Boxes. 3 of them, stacked neatly beside my bookshelf. Each labeled in Vera's handwriting, "Baby's Things." I stepped out of bed slowly. My room smelled different, like lavender sachets and freshly folded linens. I opened my closet and found half my clothes had been moved to a guest room. Vera appeared at the doorway, mug in hand, like she hadn't just moved my life without asking. "We thought since you're barely home these days, it could make sense," she said with that practiced gentleness that always made me feel like the unreasonable one. "It'll be the nursery. Plenty of time to figure out storage for your things." She said it like a favor, like a logical choice, as if I'd vacated my identity long enough to make the repurposing of my space a natural next step. I didn't respond, not out loud. Later that afternoon, while I was folding what clothes hadn't been boxed, Callista walked in, holding a bundle of brochures and swatches. "We've picked the venue," she said, waving one of the glossy pamphlets like it was a prize ribbon. I glanced down at the cover and felt my chest clench. I knew that place. It was the vineyard I'd bookmarked 2 years ago, back when Travis and I were still fumbling through something real but unspoken. I'd shown him the venue over coffee once, smiling like a child showing off her dream treehouse. He said, "That's actually beautiful," and held my hand across the table for the first time. And now here it was, featured in Callista's wedding package, with her name on the reservation line. She rattled on about the terrace, the lighting, the oak barrels they'd use as cocktail tables. I nodded, lips pressed into a line, every detail of my imagined future unraveling without noise. That evening, I sat at my desk and opened the venue's website. Their blog had a new post, "Golden Hour Love, Callista and Travis's engagement shoot." There they were, posed beneath the string lights I'd once told Travis I wanted for my own photos. Under the exact banner I designed for a college marketing class. I closed the laptop, stood slowly, and walked downstairs to dinner. The table was already set. Vera and Callista were talking over seating charts while Travis scrolled on his phone. I sat down, placed my napkin in my lap, and waited for the right breath. "If my room becomes a nursery," I said calmly, "I'll move out the same day." They looked up. Vera's fork hovered midair. "And if anyone else uses what I once shared in trust as their blueprint for love, or dreams, or anything else," I added, voice steady, "you won't hear from me again." Vera let out a short laugh, unsure if I was joking. Callista gave a half smile. "Come on, Ro, don't be so intense." But Travis, he looked straight at me, and for the first time since this all began, I saw guilt flicker in his expression. No one said anything else. After dinner, I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I packed one box, books, journals, the mug from my first job, a candle I'd saved for better days. At the top of the stairs, I paused and turned back. My voice was quiet, but it filled the space. "I'm not angry that you forgot me. I'm angry that you made me forget myself." Then I closed my door and carried the box to the car. From downstairs, I heard Callista's voice, soft and dismissive. "She's bluffing." But I already had the keys in my hand. The sun was still high when Callista texted, "Hey, can you bring my shoes to the venue? Left them by the front door." No greeting, no thank you. Just orders like always. I picked up the heels, gold strappy ones she never wore more than once, and tossed them into a bag. The drive to the vineyard was quiet, save for the hum of tires on asphalt and the occasional flicker of static on the radio. A perfect silence to prepare myself for another forced smile. When I arrived, the planner greeted me with a clipboard in hand. "Oh, are you with catering?" she asked, not unkindly. I blinked. "No, just dropping something off for the bride." She nodded, already distracted. I looked at the clipboard she held. My name wasn't on the list. I scanned the rows twice, just to be sure. Dozens of names, familiar ones. Family, old friends, even Mom's bridge partner. But no Rowena Walsh. I stood there, still holding Callista's shoes, when Travis walked by on the far side of the lawn. He caught my eye and approached slowly, adjusting his tie. "You made it," he said. "I wasn't invited," I answered, holding his gaze. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes drifted to the shoes. "Thanks for bringing those." As he reached for the bag, I noticed the ring on Callista's name tag on the welcome board. My grandmother's ring. I recognized it immediately. Vintage platinum, Art Deco, a family heirloom Vera once promised would be mine. "I didn't know she was using that ring," I said. Travis looked down, suddenly finding the grass at his feet fascinating. "It's what your mom had, said it should stay in the family." "It was supposed to be mine," I said, my voice flat. He didn't deny it. The memories hit like hail. That night years ago, when he said he wasn't ready, that it wasn't the right time. The look in his eyes when I showed him the Vineyard website, giddy and hopeful. The way Vera started calling him like a son right after. "I wasn't unready," I said out loud, mostly to myself. "You just got redirected." He finally looked up. "Your mom said you hated pressure, said you liked being in the background." My throat tightened, not from sadness, but from rage I'd swallowed for years. "You believed her?" He shrugged. "You didn't fight for it." "I wasn't given the chance." Neither of us spoke after that. I turned and walked back toward the main house, pausing only to glance at the guest list still pinned beside the door. I snapped a photo with my phone, no caption, no framing, just a receipt. I drove home, my hands steady on the wheel, the silence in the car familiar but different, controlled. When I got back to my room, I posted the photo on my private story. No hashtags, no explanation, just the list. Within minutes, my inbox lit up. "Wait! You're not going! Why wouldn't they include you?" This can't be right. Even my cousin Martha messaged, They better pray Aunt Isolde doesn't see this. I didn't reply. I turned off my phone and placed it face down on the table. The room was quiet again, but this time it was mine. The rehearsal venue buzzed with staff arranging place cards and floral garlands as I stepped inside. I was there only to drop off Callista's clutch, which she'd texted about like I was her assistant. I walked through the side door, unnoticed, and headed toward the prep area. "Hey, Buffett setup goes near the terrace," a man in a vest said, handing me a silver tray without looking up. I didn't argue. I took it, carried it to the table like muscle memory, and placed it gently on the linen-draped surface. Then I turned and walked out the same way I came in, silent, unbothered on the surface. But inside, something cracked. Back home, I tossed my bag on the bed and plugged in my phone. While it charged, I flipped open my laptop. A notification pinged. A backup had completed. As I cleared some old audio files, one name caught my eye. Voicemail February. I clicked it without thinking. "I never stopped loving you. Your mom said it would be easier for everyone if I dated Callista instead." Travis's voice. Unmistakable. I played it again, this time through earbuds. The way he paused after "your mom." The way he sounded tired, resigned. Like someone who had surrendered to someone else's version of his life. I saved it twice. Then emailed it to myself. Then to an old Gmail I barely used. Not for safety, just to feel like I still had control over something. I sat at my desk, phone in hand, heart pounding. Not from fear. Not anymore. From decision. The sky outside darkened into early evening. I changed into something clean, pulled my hair back tight, and drove myself back to the venue. The rehearsal dinner was already in full swing when I arrived. No one greeted me. They probably hadn't expected me to come. Good. I waited until Callista finished her second glass of wine, and Vera raised her glass for yet another toast about new beginnings. Travis stood beside them, smile strained. I stepped forward, calm and deliberate. "Excuse me," I said. The room quieted. "I think it's time the truth got a microphone too." I held up my phone. Pressed play. Travis's voice filled the air, raw and real. The first words sent a ripple through the crowd, like someone had dropped a stone in a still pond. "I never stopped loving you." People turned, heads tilted. Someone gasped. Callista blinked rapidly, her mouth open, but no sound coming. Vera's hand gripped her wineglass so tight I thought it might shatter. Travis didn't move. He didn't deny it. He didn't say a word. When the recording ended, silence clung to the air like smoke. I looked at them. My mother, my sister, the man who let go of me before I had the chance to hold on. "This time," I said, "I'm not the one you leave out. I'm the one leaving." I turned, walked past the stunned faces, past the half-eaten appetizers, and carefully arranged flowers. I didn't stop until I reached my car. Inside, I pulled out my phone and opened a new message. To Isolde. I finally did it. I made them hear me. The first thing I noticed that morning was the quiet. Not the tense, watch-your-step kind that filled my mother's house, but the stillness of a room that belonged entirely to me. My new apartment, small, a little bare, but untouched by anyone else's expectation, felt like a living exhale. Sunlight stretched lazily across the hardwood floors. I lay still for a while, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to prepare myself for someone else's schedule, someone else's version of what I was supposed to be. I reached for my phone. The screen lit up, and there it was. Travis's old voicemail pinned on the lock screen. I didn't play it anymore. I didn't need to. Just seeing it there reminded me I hadn't imagined everything, that I hadn't made it all up, that the hurt had been real, and the silence I kept for so long wasn't weakness, it was misused trust. I hadn't responded to anyone in the family. Not because I was angry. Anger had come and gone like a summer storm. But because this silence, this space I had carved for myself, felt sacred. I wouldn't waste it trying to explain things to people who had never truly listened. Vera had sent an email. long, carefully worded. There was no apology in it, just a meandering paragraph about miscommunications, and we didn't know how to include you in a way that wouldn't overwhelm you. Callista went dark online. No Instagram posts, no comments. Our mutuals, cousins, family friends, began unfollowing me one by one. Quiet little exits, like slipping out the back of a party that no one invited me to in the first place. Travis had sent a text too, just one line. I didn't think it would go that far. I never answered. A week after the confrontation, Isolde and I had dinner at a tiny bistro near the river, the kind of place where the waitress knew her by name, and the wine came in tiny crystal tumblers that felt too precious to hold. She brought a small gift, a framed photo of me at age 11, holding a video camera half my size. I was standing behind everyone else, capturing a moment I wasn't included in. "But I see you," she said, setting it down between us. I didn't cry. I just nodded. That was enough. Later that night, I cleaned out my old work folders, deleted files labeled Family Retreat Planning, Callista's shower schedule, Mom's anniversary speech. I archived them without sentiment. Not out of bitterness, but because they no longer belonged to me. Instead, I started something new. A blank document. A fresh website template. I typed the words, "Invisible Until Now," and hit save. That was the name of my blog. Part memoir, part reflection, part mirror for others like me, who had been edited out of their own lives. I didn't know what it would become, but it was mine. I'd already applied for a new PR role with a nonprofit that focused on women's advocacy and communication. I got the interview, then the job. They didn't ask about family. They asked about voice, purpose, boundaries. I answered honestly. And as I walked home from that first day on the job, still in my flats, tote bag swinging by my side, I whispered to myself, not triumphantly, but clearly, they didn't have to see me for me to see myself. They didn't have to honor me for me to learn what I'm worth. My apartment light glowed ahead through the window, a safe harbor. Just as I was about to step inside, my phone buzzed. New email. Subject line. Family counseling request. From Vera. I didn't open it right away. For now, I let the silence be mine. Sometimes, the loudest thing you can say is no more. I spent years trying to fit myself into a version of family that was never meant to hold me. I confused silence for strength and being overlooked for being mature. But strength isn't swallowing pain. It's standing up when the room expects you to sit down. It's telling your story, even if your voice shakes. And sometimes it's walking away, not to prove a point, but to protect your peace. If there's anything I've learned, it's this. You don't have to wait for permission to matter. Maybe you felt invisible too. Maybe you've been told to understand, to not make a scene, to be the bigger person so many times that you forgot how small that made you feel. So I'm asking you, have you ever had to reclaim your worth from the people who were supposed to protect it? Have you ever been edited out of your own story? What did you do next? Tell me in the comments, whether you're watching from a quiet living room in Wisconsin, a coffee shop in New Jersey, or anywhere else across the country. I want to hear your voice. And if this story touched something in you, drop a 1 in the comments, or just tell me where you're tuning in from. If it didn't land for you, that's okay too. Share why. Let's have the kind of conversation that real families often avoid but truly need. And hey, if you want more stories like this one, hit that subscribe button, because the next story, it might just be yours.